Friday, January 18th, a crowd of teenagers surrounded a Native American elder and other activists and appeared to mock them after Friday's Indigenous Peoples March at the Lincoln Memorial.
That confrontation igniting outrage, teenagers wearing Make America Great Again hats, face to face with a Native American protester, a Vietnam War veteran. And there's new video now raising more questions tonight about what happened right before that moment. It's also disturbing.
A crowd of roughly 100 people, including the teenagers seen in the video, gradually splintered off from a March for Life event to confront a nearby group of Black Hebrew Israelites. As the teenagers began to attack the Black Israelites, Phillips, the Native American, noted that the Black Israelites also began to say some harsh things in retaliation.
The teens respond by chanting their school letters. Nathan Phillips approaches, claiming he was trying to defuse the tension, beating his drum as he stands in front of student Nick Sandman. Sandman smirking.
The headline for this story began as a condemnation of the teens wearing the MAGA hats and their actions as racism, but was quickly reversed, and then the focus and blame was laid at the feet of the four Hebrew Israelite men, labeling them as racists and radicals. There is much symbolism that can be found in this incident. Let's first start with the teens from the Kentucky Catholic school who wore MAGA hats. MAGA is connected with Magog. Magog is a metaphor for an archetypal enemy of God and is often associated with apocalyptic traditions. Remember this connection to the apocalypse as we will revisit it later. It is important to note that Magog comes against the children of Israel who are gathered back into their land. See Ezekiel 38 and 39. In the context of this story, we are being shown young white American teens from a Catholic school in a position juxtaposed against two other groups, Native Americans and Hebrew Israelites. America's beginning, at least for Europeans, began with Christopher Columbus's so-called discovery of America, even though you cannot discover a place that is already inhabited by groups who are native to that land. Anyway, Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer, navigator, and colonist who completed 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean under the auspices of the Catholic monarchs of Spain. This connects back to the teens from the Catholic school. Eventually, England possessed more and more of the land from Spain and the other nations that settled in the New World until the Revolutionary War in 1775, when the 13 colonies, led by the New England colonies, declared independence as the United States of America. This connects the teens to the American patriots. The Native American man in this incident is symbolic of the natives who had their land stolen by the European colonists, whose source of food was decimated by the invaders when they killed the buffalo. Its slaughter was once seen as a way to starve Native Americans into submission. A colonel for the U.S. Army was quoted as saying, "Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone." They even reminded the nation of this event during the national championship, in which Lil Wayne performed the song Uproar with Imagine Dragons. In the song, he raps, "I don't bluff, bro, aiming at your head like a buffalo."
Where the love go? 5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go. Get the down. I don't bluff, bro, aiming at your head like a buffalo.
There were approximately over 10 million Native Americans living in this land before the invaders arrived, and by the year 1900, there were less than 300,000. Needless to say, the genocide of the Native Americans was purely designed for the depopulation of the land they occupied so that it could be stolen and developed into what we now call America. This was orchestrated by a murderous group of invaders whose actions, at their core, were no less evil than Hitler's. The Hebrew Israelites were trying to inform the Native Americans that they are also descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, the tribes of Gad and Reuben.
The name that the so-called white man gave you. Indian means savage. You are not savages. You are the children of God, according to the Bible. You are the children of Israel. Before you started worshiping totem poles, you was worshiping the true living God. Before you became an idol worshiper, you was worshiping the true and living God. And this is the reason why this land was taken away from you.
The last group represented in this event are the so-called African American radicals, or the Black Hebrew Israelites. Interestingly enough, this event occurred at the Lincoln Memorial. The Lincoln Memorial connects this story back to slavery since Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. This was an executive order which changed the federal legal status of more than 3.5 million enslaved African Americans in the designated areas of the South from slave to free. As we have discussed earlier, according to Deuteronomy 28:68, the slaves that were brought from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade were actually descendants of the children of Israel and Judah. The vast majority of slaves transported to the New World, according to written history, were not native Africans from central, western, nor eastern parts of the continent. In fact, these people have been historically proven to be descendants of early Hebrews that had migrated from Arabia and Egypt, Israel and Ethiopia into West Africa. These people were attacked and sold by native African tribes and Muslims to European slave traders, who then transported them to North, South, and Central America. This map shows the Kingdom of Judah, which became or was renamed Huida, which was a slave port in Benin, West Africa. Notice Lincoln, who history claims freed the slaves, had the first name of Abraham, which is a reference to the first of the Hebrew patriarchs who received the promises and covenant from the Most High. The progenitor of Isaac and Jacob, Abraham is the father of the Hebrew people. See Hebrews 11:8-19 and Genesis chapter 12:1-20. Once again, this is another clue which symbolically connects the slaves who were brought to America by ship, just as Deuteronomy 28:68 declares, to the children of Israel and Judah. This is the message that the Hebrew Israelites were originally delivering. Also, you will notice that during this protest at the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument stands in the distance. The Washington Monument, also known as the Obelisk in Washington, D.C., was built by slaves.
Old records show construction contractors used a practice known as hiring out, which involved white slave owners getting paid for allowing their slaves to be used as temporary laborers. The slaves themselves were only paid if they worked nights, Sundays, and holidays.
The Washington Monument originated in Egypt as the Egyptian obelisk, a symbol for Osiris's penis. Again, ironically, this fact points to the truth that the African slaves were actually Hebrew Semitic people, descendants of the children of Israel and Judah. It should also be mentioned that George Washington was a Freemason And the Washington Monument is also a reference to his connection to Freemasonry as well. Notice the apron that the Freemasons wear covers their genitals. This is a reference to the depiction in modern art of the skins made by Yah and given to Adam and Eve to cover their nakedness. See Genesis 3:21. The Hebrew slaves in Egypt built the pyramids while they were being held in bondage before Moses led them out of Egypt to the Promised Land. In like manner, the Hebrew slaves that were brought to America built the U.S. Capitol and began the initial construction of the Washington Monument, an Egyptian symbol in the land of their captivity. Why did the founding fathers of America choose Egyptian symbols like the obelisk and the pyramid on the seal of the $1 bill to represent America, unless they were purposefully trying to spiritually connect this land with the land of Egypt? In allowing this to occur, Yah was confirming Deuteronomy 28:68 by the fact that so-called African Americans were brought to America or spiritual Egypt on ships and are most definitely descendants of the children of Israel and Judah. The mention of the name Abraham as it pertains to these events also connects to the upcoming Super Bowl as well. In Super Bowl LIII on February 3rd, the New England Patriots will play the Los Angeles Rams in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the city of Atlanta, the home of the Atlanta Falcons. Abram went down into Egypt. See Genesis 12:10. Notice there's a depiction of the 3 pyramids of Egypt built on the side of the stadium. Remember, this stadium is connected to the Atlanta Falcons. The falcon-headed god in Egypt was Horus, the sun god, who was specifically related to the ruling pharaoh. The eye of Horus can be seen above the pyramid on our dollar as a depiction of the god of Freemasonry, Lucifer. A star is born. In biblical times, there was a star which stood over Bethlehem to mark the birth of the Messiah. In like manner, the Mercedes-Benz symbol is connected to the coming forth of the Antichrist. The symbol of the Mercedes-Benz originated from a 3-pointed star marking the location of one of the founders' homes in Germany. What an uncanny similarity to the Star of Bethlehem. The other founder, Benz, used the laurel wreath. Therefore, we get a laurel wreath surrounding a 3-pointed star as the Mercedes-Benz symbol. The laurel wreath is sacred to Apollo, the sun god. So what does the 3-pronged star actually mean? According to the company, it represents the automaker's drive toward universal motorization with its engines dominating the land, sea, and air, or 3 points. Therefore, when we add the fact that Apollo, the sun god, is connected to the Mercedes-Benz emblem, it becomes a symbol for the plan for world domination by Satan or Lucifer and his Antichrist. In Genesis 15, Yah says to Abram, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance." In this, Yah was referring to the bondage of the Hebrews in Egypt when Moses brought them out, as well as the 400 years of bondage so-called African Americans have suffered in the United States. Remember, Trump signed the commemoration of 400 years of slavery in America from 1619 to 2019. One last thing concerning how they have connected the patriarch Abraham to this year's Super Bowl. Abraham was tested by Yah and asked to offer his son Isaac in sacrifice. However, just before Abraham was about to sacrifice his son, Genesis 22:13 tells us, "And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son." This ram was a foreshadowing or an expression of what was to come, the Lamb without spot or blemish, Yahushua HaMashiach, our Messiah. And in the same way that the sacrifice of this ram was substituted for Abraham's child, Isaac, Abraham's descendants will be rescued from slaughter by our enemies from the land of our captivity. Aside from this interpretation of the symbolism behind the ram, it should also be noted that a ram also represents Ares or Mars, the god of war. This is a reference to the coming attack on America and its inevitable destruction. On Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, the first mass shooting of this year occurred at a SunTrust bank in Sebring, Florida.
A deadly rampage at a Florida bank tonight. We have now learned that all 5 victims were women, one of them a mother of 7.
Today, 21-year-old Zephin Zaver facing a judge and charged with 5 counts of premeditated homicide murder. Police say the alleged shooter walked into the SunTrust bank with a bulletproof vest and a 9mm handgun, forcing the 4 employees and lone customer to the ground, shooting them execution style. All 5 victims were women.
The date, January 23rd, connects this shooting to the number 23 and Principia Discordia, the goddess of chaos. It should be noted that the Super Bowl will be held on February 3rd, which also gives us the number 23 as well. Zephin Zaver was identified as the gunman. The name Zephin means hidden by God. Yahweh has hidden, protected, or Yahweh hides. The name Zaver means castle or new house. In essence, his name is a reference to Yah hiding and protecting his children from the judgment that is about to be poured out upon the earth. This is confirmed by the fact that Zephin is a version of Zephaniah, the name of a Hebrew prophet. Zephaniah 1:14-18 speaks directly about the day of the Lord's return, when it declares, "The great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land." The book of Zephaniah also issues a call to repentance in chapter 2, verse 1-3, which declares, "Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired, before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be, ye shall be hid, in the day of the Lord's anger. And finally, the book of Zephaniah also speaks of the restoration of Israel in Zephaniah 3:19 through 20, when it declares, "Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will give them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. At that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you. For I will make you a name and a praise among all the people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord." This is clearly a sign that the Most High will bring his children that were scattered all over the world and held in captivity back to a position of greatness. They failed to mention what I'm about to share with you in these news clips. However, a news article mentioned that the gunman was clad in a t-shirt that bore the image of 4 Sith-wielding Grim Reapers on horseback. This is a depiction of the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse. The first seal judgment is the rider on the white horse, which is the Antichrist. We have discussed this in detail previously as the rider on the white Bronco and Obama's connection to Mile High Stadium. It is no coincidence then that this shooting occurred in Highlands County. The second seal judgment is the red horse of war. This represents Aries, or the ram. Remember, the Rams will be playing in this year's Super Bowl. The third seal judgment is the black horse of famine. With the government shutdown, it has already been said that food stamps and government assistance will be cut off from people. This famine, however, will be worldwide, probably because of some sort of nuclear contamination of the soil, crops, and water supply, resulting in the death of livestock. The fourth seal is the pale horse of death, which represents the enormous amount of death and destruction that will pervade the earth. Remember, I told you earlier how the white teens wearing the MAGA hats were connected to Magog in the Apocalypse. Again, through this incident, you have been shown a young white male connected with a symbol for the end of the world. It was reported that Xavier had recently been training to work as a correctional officer at Avon Park Correctional Institution, a prison about 20 miles north of the bank where the shooting occurred. He was hired as a trainee in November and resigned on January 9th. November gives us the number 11. He was fired on the 9th. Together, this gives us 11-9 or 9-11. January 9th also equals 19, which is symbolic of 2019 being the possible start of the apocalypse. Remember the Madden 19 shooting which occurred last year. The name Avon spelled backwards is Nova, which means new. A nova is a star showing a sudden large increase in brightness and then slowly returning to its original state over a few months. This connects back to the three-pointed star of Mercedes-Benz and the rise of the Antichrist. Interestingly enough, in October 2018, the movie A Star is Born, featuring Lady Gaga, as in MAGA, was released. The connection to this star is telling, since we know that Lady Gaga worships Lucifer as well.
Strange, and I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer.
Also, this shooting occurred at SunTrust Bank, another reference to the worship of the sun. You must also remember that the rising sun connects back to Obama. According to reports, 5 women were killed in this event. Earlier, we discussed the Washington Monument, or Egyptian obelisk and how it symbolizes the male genitalia. While the obelisk represents the male organ, the V represents the female organ. There are 5 points to a pentagram, and each point makes a V, representing the woman's vagina. As reported by the media, the shooter opened fire on the 5 women. Remember, during 9/11, they set the Pentagon on fire, which was symbolic of setting a pentagram on fire. The pentagram is also a symbol for the Order of the Eastern Star, the female component to Freemasonry. Now we must ask ourselves, why did the shooting occur in Florida? The state of Florida is known as the Sunshine State, which again connects this event with the worship of the sun. Notice how many mass shooting incidents have occurred in the state of Florida in a very short period of time. Florida is also sometimes referred to as the Gunshine State because of its traditionally loose restrictions on firearms. It is clear then that this shooting is also designed to be used as another attack on the Second Amendment. The fact that this mass shooting event has been connected to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, namely the rise of the Antichrist, war, famine, pestilence, and death, portends a very ominous future for America and the rest of the world. This, coupled with Trump's cryptic statement about the calm before the storm, should give everyone pause to stop and consider the times in which we live.
You guys know what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm?
We have the world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Give us a hint.
Little does he know that he is not the one bringing the storm. Instead, he will be just like all other men are, tossed about violently like a leaf in the winds of a hurricane. If you have not given your life to the Most High by accepting Yahushua HaMashiach as your personal master and redeemer, the time to do so is now. Amen. Shalom.